Welcome to ClueCon Weekly. Join us every Wednesday to learn about the latest cutting-edge developments in the real-time communications industry. ClueCon Weekly is brought to you by FreeSwitch Solutions. Get support and professional services directly from the creators of the FreeSwitch open source project, solving your issues in the most efficient, stable, and scalable way possible. Get the FreeSwitch advantage. Visit freeswitch.com. Also brought to you by ClueCon, the premier technology conference for developers by developers. Join us every summer in Chicago. ClueCon kicks off on Monday with our annual hackathon, The Coder Games, followed by 3 days of technology-rich presentations discussing telecom, Webrtc, and IoT from developers around the world. To learn more, visit ClueCon.com or call 877-74-A-CLUE.
Welcome to ClueCon Weekly. Today is the 27th of March, 2019. This week we're going to be joined by Tsahi Levent-Levi from, he's going to be joining us all the way from Israel, I believe. bloggeek.me, one of the guys that talks and knows more about Webrtc than probably most people out there. So ought to be a real good conversation with him and Michael later on. So stand by for that. First, let's jump over and see Miss Abby for the news.
All right. Hi, everybody, and thank you for joining us today on ClueCon Weekly. The biggest announcement that I have for today is that the call for speakers for our 15th ClueCon anniversary this year, August 5th through the 8th this year, coming up. So the call for speakers closes on April 15th. So that gives you about 2 weeks if you're interested in speaking at ClueCon this year. It's a great opportunity to share with your peers what projects you're working on. It's a good way to get your company out there, and it's a good way for the community to get to know you personally. So I definitely recommend speaking at ClueCon. It's definitely a low-pressure situation if you haven't spoken at a conference before, but our audience is jam-packed full of technically aware people and developers, so it's a great place to share what you're doing if you have spoken at a conference before as well. So if you're interested in speaking at ClueCon, you can just go to ClueCon.com and there is a link right on our homepage. Otherwise, you can visit our speakers page and submit a proposal there. It's really easy to submit a proposal. You just fill in your name, fill in what you want to talk about, and submit it, and we'll let you know if your talk was accepted or not. If you are trying to figure out what you might want to talk about and have not decided yet, lucky for you, we have a great place to find some inspiration. You can go to our YouTube channel, and we have an entire playlist of speakers from last year's ClueCon there. If you want to see kind of what other people have talked about in the past, kind of get a feel for what our conference is like if you've never been there before, and just check out all the great speakers we've had in the past. So don't forget to submit your proposals. We really want to hear your talk. And our next piece of news is that if you're on our ClueCon website anyway, while you're submitting your speaker proposal, you can go ahead and register right in the top right corner right away. We are having our lowest prices that we've ever had in over a decade for ClueCon this year in honor of our 15th anniversary. And we're having a lot of fun surprises and fun celebrations. So this is definitely a great year to go to if you haven't been in a while, or if you're thinking about going, or even if you go every year, this one's going to be one of the best yet. In other news, our sponsor, SignalWire, is still offering $50 in free credit when you use the code CCWeekly19, all caps, CCWeekly19. You can sign up for a space at signalwire.com, and that $50 is going to last you a long while, so I definitely recommend going there and playing around with that if you have not done that before. Mark your calendars for April 10th. Brian West is going to be right here on ClueCon Weekly to talk about all things FreeSwitch and answer all of your questions that you might have. And Anthony Minasali, I have just heard, is actually going to be joining him. So if you want to see them talk about FreeSwitch and SignalWire and answer any questions that you might have, April 10th is the day to do that. My last piece of news is that we just posted a new FreeSwitch blog today, so go onto our website and check that out. And next week, Madison and I are actually going to be doing a joint ClueCon Weekly Blogspot segment, and it's going to be wild, so I definitely recommend you stopping by next week as well. As always, if you have any questions, feel free to ask in the YouTube chat or the comments or the Slack channel, and we will answer them live during this call. And that's all the news I have today. So back to you, Ken.
All right. Thank you very much, Miss Abby. Let's jump over to Mr. Mike Navrutis. And I think, who we got? Mike Jarris for Community Corner this week, Mike? Mike, how's it going, guys?
Yes, we do. So it's the two mics yet again. Mike, there's a question on the FreeSwitch users mailing list, which is in regards to disabling music on hold. And that question is from Juan Nino. And Juan Nino asks, I am trying to get FreeSwitch to ignore the re-invites and don't want to play any music on hold, as the music on hold already comes from the PBX. Even when disabling it, I still see in the logs it is trying to play it. Any idea what has to be done to get FreeSwitch to continue passing RTP without imposing it on its own? So, Mike, what do we do here?
What do we do here? So, I mean, typically, if the other device is playing music on hold, it's not going to tell you it. So the fact that you're getting a re-invite is kind of weird anyways. But we do have an option to essentially ignore those re-invites and not process them as an internal hold event. It's there's two ways. One is this Sophia profile parameter, and one is a channel variable. And the channel variable is RTP underscore disable underscore hold equals true. And the profile parameter is disable dash hold, again, equals true. That's a Sophia profile parameter.
So wait, Mike, do we really want to do this in the first place?
It's really hard to say. He says that the PBX already does it. It sounds like we are in between a PBX and a device. So it would be appropriate to do it in that case. It's not typical for sure, but I mean, there's parameters there to do this for a reason. So it is reasonable, but certainly not the defaults. Most people use FreeSwitch as the thing that plays the whole music.
But it's better than Silent Stream.
Yeah, I mean, well, Silent Stream, if you just change it to Silent Stream, it's going to blank out the audio playing from the PBX in this case. If you want it to actually just pass through the disable hold, we'll do that and we'll ignore the upstream indication and not try to play hold music.
All right, well, thank you, Mr. Jarris. Answers from the experts. And so now we have Tsahi Levent-Levi. And so Tsahi is an old school RTC advocate, right? You've been doing this for a long time.
Yes, probably somewhere since Webrtc started. You can say that I left the company because of Webrtc. And then, my life got me to just dealing with that full time.
But it's gotten easier, right?
What got easier? To do what I do or to use Webrtc?
Well, both, because in the end, we have a little bit more unification. You go back to the old days, everything was like the Wild West. Some things would work, some things wouldn't work on this browser, wouldn't work on that browser.
I think it's difficult today, but in a different way. So the type of questions I get are different. They come from a larger variety of people. They almost never come from developers that come from voice over IP, looked at Webrtc, built things with Webrtc. They come from people that are new, or people that want to do stuff today, where they either have legacy and voice over IP already running and they need to add Webrtc, or they are clueless about it and need to add it to an existing product that they have. And now,
give us some examples. Like, what's the typical use case?
There is no typical use case. I mean, Let's look. I had to deal. I look at things that are a bit a bit in the past, because it's like shaky ground to talk about existing clients. But I had discussions either with customers, would-be customers, or just people in the same week. At the same week, I had someone that was a dancer who got stage 4 cancer. She got well and then decided to build a service for women who have cancer and don't want to get out of the house, but still want to do things. So this would allow them to dance from home, join a dance lesson from home instead of going outside. At that same week, I also had a meeting with a porn company in Israel with the need to use
Wait, what type of
Webrtc.
company?
Porn. That was a very interesting experience. I'm very happy that I didn't get that consulting project. It was so weird. But the reasons there are quite simple. They want to put an app on iOS and they can't. But they still want to be with you in your bathroom. So that was one. And then now,
So you have the ultimate good and the ultimate bad.
yeah, so on the ultimate good side, I've got two more, to balance it out. I had a priest coming and asking to do the rosary over the internet, broadcast it using Webrtc. And then I had,
So there's a lot of those religious bridges and stuff like that.
Yes.
So like you have the priest come in and they have like literally partitioners dial into the conference bridge.
Yes, you see it a lot,
That's
probably.
one of the things that unless you were in telecom, you would never hear about in a million years.
Yes.
It's such a big market.
And then there's, I don't know how to translate it to English, but the guys that are clowns in hospitals that go to the beds of kids to, make them happy and stuff because it helps them, whatever, go through the phases of being in hospital and sick. And again, they use Skype and they wanted to use something else to do it remotely and not only come physically. There is a company in Belgium that gives a video conferencing system into a school where the kid stays at home or in a hospital for long periods of time, let's say months, and they still want him to be able to join classes. So they put a video conferencing in the class and one in the room or the hospital for the kid. And again, they wanted to move to Webrtc. So you see a lot of different companies and vendors using different things, driving a car remotely. You have a car, I want to drive it remotely.
One of the most endearing stories I've heard is it's a DoD contractor, and what they do is they go into the VA hospitals and they connect the families with the actual person that's in the hospital.
Mm-hmm.
And so it's not just during visiting hours, you can communicate with that person anytime you want.
Yes,
and I mean it's such a magical thing.
Yes, now I'll give you the other side of the same story. Let's put some bad to balance things out. You have jails, and the jail system in the US is so so weird that it's there to make money, not to actually incarcerate people that need to be there. And how do you make money out of prisoners? You give visitation hours that can be done remotely over video conference that you get paid for. So there's that as well.
That's really interesting because there's a very high level of compliance associated with that.
I think it's more policies than it is compliance. Compliance you'll see in healthcare with HIPAA compliance. Jails, when I saw these types of use cases in the past and today, they seldom talk about governance. What they want is to be able for someone be able to monitor a call remotely, stop it, moderate it, things like that. But they don't talk about, we need to go through a special compliance of the government in order to sell that. It's not there. So it's just
they definitely want the monitoring, they want the backup.
Yes.
They want all those components, which I would think are actually pretty complicated. right? Setting all
Yes.
that in. I mean, in the end, it's like real-time intercept.
Yes, but you can think about it also as a three-way call. And now it becomes a little easier to deal with, and you moderate it either in band or usually out of band, because you now can do things out of band with Webrtc a lot easier. It's just part of your application. So it's complicated, but not so. If you can take or understand how to use an existing solution like FreeSwitch or others and mold them into what you want them to be.
So how are you using FreeSwitch right now?
What do you mean? In this specific call or me specifically?
Yeah. No, like working with your infrastructure and how you design things for clients. Like how are you using FreeSwitch within your infrastructure?
So FreeSwitch, in most of the services that I have, FreeSwitch goes into connecting the Webrtc piece towards legacy. So whenever someone has PSTN or stuff going on with SIP, the most common solution is to just put a FreeSwitch there and have that do the bridging, either alone or with something like Janus, depends on what the customer wants to build. Sometimes FreeSwitch would look like the center of the solution, and sometimes it will be just the bridging part towards PSTN. So in most, let's say, group video calling solutions, the customer would usually go and use Jitsi or Janus. But when someone needs to dial in from PSTN, or you need to dial out to someone from PSTN to join him into a call, you would just add a FreeSwitch component to that Jitsi or Janus machine.
So you're not really using Verto that much?
No. Verto gets used with clients where the center of the universe for them is voice over IP or SIP, PSTN, and FreeSwitch. And then in most cases, I would tell them not to use SIP over WebSocket and just use Verto instead, because it brings a better architecture in terms of the solution. Using SIP on the web works, but it's not that fun. Using SIP on a mobile device is even worse. Okay, so it's painful.
Depending on the mobile provider too, right?
Yes, it's like, why do I need to register before I can get an incoming invite when I got a push notification already? It should be dialing. I don't need to wait until it dials just because that's how things are done in SIP. So then Verto makes a lot more sense in a lot of these architectures. And you've got a new thing going with WebSockets, right? At least in SignalWire.
Well, Verto actually uses WebSockets, I believe.
But I think it's slightly different than what you're doing there. At least that's what I understood. I might be mistaken.
So you have a blog as well, right?
Yes. I have multiple websites. So like the center of all is probably bloggeek.me. That's where I write the stupid things that I do about Webrtc, CPaaS, communication, messaging, omnichannel, machine learning, whatever I want. I tend to write once a week for the last 7 years. I did twice a week at some point, but then it becomes hard. It's not that there are not enough things to write, but writing a piece that is thoughtful with enough content in it that people will actually read takes a lot of time. So it's a few hours of work, but it's fun. So that's what I do in BlogGeek.me. That's also where I tend to, let's call it, catch customers to do consulting work with them, and where I sell reports online. For example, there's the CPaaS report that I have. It's going to be coming out again with an update within a month. So there is the work around that, and then the promotion that I'm doing for that. These kinds of things go into that blog. Then there's the Webrtc Glossary, webrtcglossary.com, around terms that relate to Webrtc, just a static site. It gets updated once in a while. And I tend to link to there for certain things that are right, because I don't want to explain what an SFU is or a jitter buffer or a specific codec, so I just link there. The fun thing is, or the coolest thing is that WebKit, in their last post around what they're doing, their position with Webrtc, finally they said something with substance about the future. Wherever they put any item or term related to Webrtc, they also link to the glossary. So that was a win for me. There is the Webrtc Weekly, where there is just a newsletter that goes once a week with all of the links of things that I find around the web that relate to Webrtc, and that is newsworthy. And then there is the Webrtc Course, where I have an online course on Webrtc. First module is free to use and read or go through, and the other modules are paid for. And there were up until now around 300 students going through that course, the paid part of it, which is fun. That's really cool. And then there's testRTC, where I'm co-founder and CEO, and that's where we do a self-service platform for testing and monitoring Webrtc-based services.
So Microsoft has a browser with a new engine coming out.
Yes. So
what do you think?
Do you want the sarcastic answer, the polite answer? Which kind of answer do you want?
Well, let's start with the truthful answer, because it's starting to get out there now, right? It's in beta or it's been leaked. I'm not really sure exactly what it is, but it's based on WebKit, right? How bad can it be?
No. It's based on Chromium.
Oh, it's based on based on Chromium.
So WebKit today is Apple. It used to be Apple and Google. Then Google came one day and said, we just hate Apple. We want to build something on our own and don't be bogged down with all of the things that Apple needs. They took WebKit. The first month, they just went and deleted everything that was if-def Apple or if-def not Google. And then they called it Blink, and they started working on that fork of WebKit that is today called Blink. On top of that, there is something called Chromium, which is the open source version of Chrome. So it's everything in Chrome besides the things that are Google specific, like connectivity to Google services, the search engine, things like that. People use today Chromium in a lot of different ways. Opera is built on top of Chromium. Electron, which is a Node.js project that allows you to build PC applications, cross-platform PC applications, is built on top of Chromium. And
there's
obviously,
a lot of applications built on that.
Yes.
Right? So like Slack.
Skype on Linux is based on Electron. There's, who else? Discord, their app is based on that. A lot of them.
Signal.
Most of the things that you can... Yes. Because it's easy, you've got a web app, it's running, you just take it, you put it inside Electron. I'm simplifying things, but you put it inside Electron and magically I have a PC application and it runs across Linux, Windows, Mac. What's wrong with that? So yes, we've got a lot of Electron apps today. And now we've got Edge running on Electron, or not, sorry, Edge running on top of Chromium. And I think in a way it's a win for everyone and it's a lose for the internet at the same time. Okay? It's a win for everyone. It's a win for everyone because now we've got Microsoft, Google, what should be the best browser out there. Okay? Now, Microsoft are going to go and do the optimization that are required to make it work in the best way on top of Windows and probably on top of an Intel chipset because they know it the best after Intel. And they probably have better connections than Google towards these parts or the teams that they need there. So we'll end up having a better Chrome browser and a better Edge browser. So that's a win. And there's going to be less interoperability issues, but the problem is that in the internet, we now have one less browser in terms of what's available, what's out there, who is controlling the internet, who is controlling the window that we use towards the internet. So you practically will have Google, Apple.
Isn't it better to have less browsers?
Sure it is, and then you have Internet Explorer 4 that everyone hated. Okay, so if you don't have the variety, if there is someone that controls everything, that's a problem.
That is true.
Because they can make decisions, and you might not like these decisions, or they might be a bit more leaning towards what they need. I'll give you this, the simplest example. Up until the latest Chrome versions, you needed to have a stupid thing called an extension to do screen sharing with WebRTC on Chrome. Okay, so you had to go through this stupid part of clicking, refreshing the page, and everything works. Not that much of friction, but it's there, and it's ugly. Have you ever needed to install an extension?
It's for security, though.
Yes, I'm sure that it is. That's why they just thrown it out. It was there for that, but now they assume that it's not, it doesn't bring the security that you're looking for. But let me ask you this. At the same point in time, have you ever had to install an extension for Google Hangouts to do screen sharing?
I guess not, huh?
Yeah, so that's like you can call it an unfair advantage. And I would say, well, they're Google, they're allowed to do it. It's Chrome, it's Google Hangout. It makes sense that they would make it work, best that way. You wouldn't expect Microsoft not to make Edge work better with their stuff. Just that's obvious. But the point
in full disclosure, RTC can be a little scary. It can, because there's a lot of things that can be exposed from a security standpoint.
Yes, but why do they need to get a better, why don't they offer it to other companies? Why didn't they have a whitelist of services that don't need to install whatever? I don't know. Okay, Firefox did that. That's a different way of doing the same thing. Is it more secure, less secure? I have no clue. I'm not talking here about the security piece, but rather the fact that the behavior becomes different if you're Google and if you're someone else when you use Chrome. Okay, Google came out today last week or 2 weeks ago with Stadia, their cloud streaming gaming service. So I have a machine running in the cloud, it runs the game, but I play it at home from, they call it a Chrome browser. Okay. Now, in order to get that done, they probably made some changes and optimizations to WebRTC itself, because they're using WebRTC there, and they even talk about it and brag.
They're pushing out associated hardware with it too. So, there's a new version of the Chrome. There's a new version of the Chromecast, which was designed specifically to take this platform into consideration.
I'm talking about Chrome inside the laptop. Okay, let's make it simple. Now, Chrome inside the laptop, if I had to compete with Google or build this type of a cloud service on my own, I can't change WebRTC to make it better for that use case. But if I'm Google, I can. So you can say that they have an unfair advantage. Okay, is it good? Is it bad? I'm fine with Google. I use Gmail. I use all the Google services. I run on Linux with a Chrome browser. What can I say? I don't use Firefox because I use Chrome. I tried using Firefox, okay? It lasted 2 hours. Now, it wasn't bad. Firefox wasn't bad. It was a good experience, but it didn't know me as well as Chrome knows me. You open a Chrome browser on a new machine. I tell him, I'm Tsahi, you know me, and yes, he knows you. He can open your tabs from other machines. It remembers all of your passwords.
Well, Chrome knows you very, very well, even if you don't want it to.
Yes, but I started using Firefox, and it's like, why doesn't it do the things that I'm used to doing? So I just had to go back. It was, the investment of going and teaching it the things that I needed wasn't worth it. So it's not that I think.
Look at the pop-up blocker scenarios, right? And the ad blockers and all that stuff, right? Mm-hmm. You can install an ad blocker in Chrome, right? And that'll and it works as expected, right? Mm-hmm. But because you're logged in with your Gmail account into Chrome, guess who gets all the data anyways?
Again, I don't think The things that they did with Stadia or the example of the extension are not about them being bad. It's out of good intentions. It all makes sense. But again, when you move from 4 browsers to 3, there is something, something dies somewhere in the world because that happened. Now, if I were Microsoft, I would have done it 2 years earlier. I wouldn't wait. It's like, why waste 200 people to just do a browser that has less than 5% market share? Are you stupid? Go use Chrome instead. We're going to fire you or put you on a different project. And that's it. Let's focus on building our services on top of Chromium instead. It's not worth it.
Yeah, but sometimes when you close one door, you open up another.
Yes.
Right? So will this give Opera the advantage to substantially increase its distribution base?
Why? It's still Chromium.
No, because is it really?
Yes, it's the same. It's like let's go, bonkers. You are going to use this thing called the Brave browser, which gives you privacy and all of these great things. That's still Chromium. So it doesn't have Google services. It has improved privacy, but you're using the same exact code base that Google decided makes the most amount of sense, and Google optimized for their needs and for their services. Okay? So it's nice, you get more privacy, but they still get their way as well. And again, it's not a bad thing. That was what I would do as a company or as employees inside a company, not even by someone superior saying, this is what we need to do, okay? It's not even a strategy that need to be in place. But it just makes sense that this is how things will roll out and happen.
Yeah. But it does make things easier for the guys at adapter.js, right?
It makes our it makes us developers lazier. We had to deal with multiple browsers. We need to test multiple browsers. Now we have one less thing to worry about. Okay, but again, that brings us a bit closer to the Internet Explorer 4 phenomena that we had. Now, if that happens in 5 or 10 years, that would be great. Why? Because then everyone will throw away Chrome and we'll need to have some other new browser coming in, and that would be pure innovation. Okay, the same thing that happened while everyone moved from Internet Explorer to Firefox and then from Firefox to Chrome. Things improved with these switches. They improved for everyone. Now we just need to get to that next switch, but it's not going to happen anytime soon.
So what do you think is in the future of RTC?
More of the same. A lot more of the same. The bad and the good. So we're going to use it a lot more because it makes more sense. It's easier. It reduces friction. It goes on with going to the clouds and virtualizing everything. Just makes sense to use it. More of the same in the bad part is that we are going to see Chrome changes every month or two and breaks the services that we love and use on a daily basis. Why? Just because. That's one answer. In the last 2 Chrome versions, the Chrome releases, they just replaced the whole audio pipeline. Made it from multi-threaded or multi-process to a single process. Okay? Which is great. It gives you better stability for the audio, but you are going to ruin life for some people. They just launched their new Echo Counselor, which is again great, but it doesn't support stereo. Okay? So there are things that change and you need to adapt to it and make sure that everything works over and over again. Then they're running today experiments around something called Mdns, which is used for privacy purposes to hash the local addresses that you have. Again, great, but they just put it as an experiment and nobody knows, and then things start breaking because of that. Other than these types of things that they do all the time because it makes sense and improvements, optimizations, and it's Google. And the mindset there is, well, this thing doesn't look so good, let's just tear it up and put something else instead. Like the story they had with OpenSSL. There were a few security issues 2 or 3 years ago, I don't remember when, with OpenSSL. Someone looked and said this was a bug there for the last 10 years or so, nobody maintains it. That's a problem. Two people inside Google come in and they said, well, OpenSSL is bad. Let's do the same thing that was done to WebKit and Blink. We'll take OpenSSL, throw everything that we don't need as Google, call it boring SSL, and use it. A year later, all of Google services run using boring SSL and not OpenSSL. Okay? Now think about changing such a thing.
And there's SIP stacks that use it too, like PJSIP uses that, doesn't it?
I think so, yes. Chrome use it. But the thing is, you take something like the engine of a car, you rip it out and you put some other engine while that car is driving. Okay, that's what they are doing every time. Sometimes it works, sometimes it breaks stuff and then they fix it, but that's fine. Okay, and they're doing it with Chrome as well and with Webrtc. The second part of it is Webrtc itself, there is no Webrtc. There's no such thing. Okay, if you go to the standardization bodies, well, there is no specification for that yet. There is no RFC in the IETF and there is no Webrtc 1.0 yet. There is a draft, but it's not the real specification. We're getting there, it's taking time. We've all been using Webrtc for the last 11 years without a standard, which is a miracle, but it's happening. And now what Webrtc implementations look like in the browsers is different than what the upcoming specification look like. So now the browsers are aligning themselves, so they're modifying the things that they are doing, which means breaking and deprecating APIs in order to support the behavior that is written in the specification. But as they do that, the things that were 1 year or 2 years behind in terms of what they were developed a year ago will not work anymore. They will break unless you fix them. Okay, so this kind
that's
of
a matter of good planning too. I mean,
yes.
you have to take the spec and base the spec around the most common uses to a certain extent.
So as a salesperson, I would say that my product is future-proof for everything. And I guess that you and I both that there is no such thing because you can't really know what the future is going to look like. Okay, it's a draft. It's not a final specification. You don't know when the browsers will do that. Part of the things that they need to do are really hard. So you would say, I won't do it today. I'll do it later when I need to. There are business that is
and I mean, come on, that's happened. That's the history of browsers. The history of browsers is them just kind of saying, okay, well, if there is a specification, well, we're going to do our own thing, and you just need to follow it anyways.
I think it's based on something different, and I know that because for some stupid reason, I now have the title of W3 Evangelist for Webrtc. Of W3C, and the way you look at it, or I now was exposed a bit more to the actual standardization process within the W3C, and it's different than IETF, okay, or the ITU. I've been in the ITU, and the ITU you go, you say, I've got this great idea, here's a draft. All of your competitors will try to, shift things around just to make sure to mess things for you, and so you'll need to re-implement the things that you've done already, and you won't have the lead on that. And then you have a specification, and now people start developing towards that specification. Now with W3C, it seems like the process, as far as I understand it, is you need to have, first of all, something that is a kind of a recommendation, a draft of this is what we want to do. Now let's wait until there are at least 2 independent implementations of that in browsers that do this great thing that we have. Once we've got that and they are interoperable because we've built the testing around that, we will call that a standard. Okay, so in that period of time between we have a good idea towards we have a standard, browsers must implement it in order for it to happen, and things will break because they don't know exactly how the standard will look at the end of the day. Does it give you a better standard? Probably it does, because it's a standard that was actually, it's battle proven. People have used it.
Yeah, but see, the key here is everyone picking up adoption, right? Mm-hmm. And with less browsers, the adoption will happen quicker.
Yes. I wouldn't say no to that. As I said, it's a good thing for everyone that we have less browsers now. One less thing to worry about. Okay, but again, how do you look at it? As an individual, as a developer, or as the internet as a whole, looking 5 or 10 years down the road, what's going to happen. Okay, I'm those that don't care. I want things to be good for me today. So that's a good thing. We have one less browser. Let's do it.
And I'm sure they'll get a really nice logo for the browser.
Probably the same one.
Microsoft is always good at coming up with good logos. I still miss the Windows XP with the little green field in the background.
Yes, I saw a picture of that of someone, and then it was of a green field and a lot of blue. Just this week on Twitter, I don't even remember whom, and he's singing and stuff. And one of the comments was, "Why did he? He's going to get sued by Microsoft for copywriting."
that was the last version of Windows I ever actually used.
I'm using Windows. To
put that in perspective.
On my laptops, I use Windows 10, and it's great. It works. When I go and work with people that have Macs, it's so funny to hear how they love their machine and how they love the Mac, and it's the best OS. But when they have problems, it's the same problems that people have with Windows. Same exact issues, same exact stupidities. So it's a matter of perception a lot of the time. It's like we all run the same crap. It looks a bit different and comes from different companies.
So let's see. What's your preferred browser?
Chrome. It knows me so well. I can't, I hate the way it eats up all of my memory. I hate the fact that I have so many tabs open all the time. But I wouldn't trade it for anything existing today. I haven't seen anything that works better for me.
Firefox has come a long way, though.
Again, maybe. I used it. It looked exactly the same as using Chrome. At least, not the parts of the menus and stuff, but once you're on a web page, it is the same, which is what you'd expect, and it behaves exactly the same. So for all the rest, I don't care, but it doesn't know me. But yes,
so tell us about RTC security, because that's always been a concern. I mean, sometimes we get these little pop-ups. People always click yes, and their camera's on.
What do you mean?
And no, I'm just I'm just saying. So like,
I think
you authorize the camera, and people. I think you have this phenomenon where people are taking these little black dots and putting them in front of their cameras because they think their camera is going to magically turn on. Right?
They're probably correct, but it's not going to happen because of the browser.
No, most likely it's happening with these things. They just turn the microphone on and listen.
Yes. So security and Webrtc, I think that the stupidest thing is that Webrtc has the best security out of all of the voice over IP solutions out there, period. And the reason is it's quite simple, okay? And the reason is the part of the client-side security you don't care about, not as a user, not as a developer. Or you should, but most of it is done for you by the browsers. If there's a security problem, they see it, they solve it, they upgrade everything automatically for all of your users. How many times have you upgraded your phone, your physical hardware phone at home, or your VIA PBX, or even your free switch PBX, compared to the ease of upgrades that happen in Webrtc on a daily basis, where you are not aware of it? Okay, that's one reason. So security is there in the level of security that browsers deal with security, not the companies behind the browsers, but the browser itself. The second thing is that everything is encrypted in Webrtc. Everything. You can't get away from it. You used to see and discuss Webrtc, and everywhere where people complain about Webrtc, asking for Webrtc to have an optional ability to go in the clear without encryption. And always the answer is no. Okay, now, why is that important? Again, I come from video conferencing, and in video conferencing it was great. You go, you do interoperability testing, between two vendors to see that SIP and H223 works. It works great. Then at the last day of the interop event, you're going to say, well, let's start something. Let's try something interesting now that we've covered everything. Let's do security. Because up until now, we didn't do it. If you do security, it's harder to debug, so you're not going to do it, right? That's how things go. And then nothing works. Now think about it on the side of the IT. As an IT guy, you've in the past purchased things, put it on-prem. Now you want to bring another vendor in. The thing that is not going to work for you across vendors is security. It's not going to be encrypted. So you end up with everything within your network, can't ship everything outside, but once something is in the network, it can record everything. Like, how do you do CDRs today with all of the free switch devices or whatever devices you have in voice over IP? You look at the RTP and RTCP streams. You just read them and see what happens there, and that's how you do monitoring and CDRs and understanding what goes on in the network. You can't do it anymore with Rtc because everything is encrypted, so you need a different way of doing that. But that just means that a bad actor can't do it as well. So it's harder for him to get there. So there's...
I mean, just think, you have some of the browsers have the ability to do screen sharing.
All of them do. But
so,
then again,
I mean,
what's the alternative?
I mean,
wait. Okay, what's the alternative? You're going to install Zoom or Skype? That's the same thing. There is the ability to screen share from there.
I mean, you think about Skype and Zoom, right? And years ago they were great concepts, and they're good platforms. There's no question about that. But the fact that you have to install software just doesn't make sense to me.
That's true.
When you could just do it in the browser.
Mm-hmm.
And it's just, again, that's it.
Remember this following thing. Whenever a security issue is found around WebRTC, browser vendors are going to fix it, and they are going to do it faster than you can do it. And they are going to deploy it faster than you can. So yes, there are security issues, there are security problems, there are bugs related to security, but once they are found, they are fixed faster than anything else. And so the whole practice around that is better, because security doesn't come from the fact that your service is the most secure one. There is no such thing. At the end of the day, someone will find the issues with your platform. And once they do, the question is, how fast can you react to that? And there, WebRTC wins big time on anything else.
Good point. Okay, so like, let's see, what are other security scenarios that I can think of? There's leaking, what do they have? There's like a leak, stun leaks, and right? You have the stun leaks, that type of stuff.
One. So I'm going to tell you a secret. Okay, just don't tell it to anyone else. My local IP address now is most probably 196.0.0.1 or something similar, close to that.
192.168.0.2.
That's like, you've got 3 default local LAN addresses that are in every house. It's either the 196 or 160 something, and then there is 10.0.0 something, right? So, okay, now you know my private IP address. Great. Okay, so there is that attitude, which I share a lot of times. Then there is the part of, well, if you look at what browsers are doing, they are acting differently regarding that leak. Google came out with saying, you know what, if that's a problem for you, you can use an extension that gets installed in the browser, and then all the local addresses magically die in all services. And you can do that. Now,
they remove the LAN stun addresses, huh?
Yes. Now, when do they do that? Well, you have a VPN. Let that VPN do it for you. Build that, all of these stupid VPNs also go and put malware on your browser anyway, so at least they can do something intelligent and relevant, and they don't. They don't even today when they have the ability to do that. So that's one way to look at it. The other one was how Apple treated it. And they said, if you want to actually use the local IP address, you must first ask the user for his camera or microphone, and the user needs to allow access to it. Only once he grants that access, we will give you the ability to use local addresses within this negotiation. Okay, which is a nice, elegant solution for the problem. There is a new solution which is running as an experiment today in Chrome, which is called Mdns. I don't really know exactly how it works, but it offers these addresses as part of DNS addresses that are hashed and stuff, the way Chromecast publishes its own addresses to the world. So they're now trying to see how that works.
As part of like multicast DNS, right?
Something like that, yes. And they're going to use that instead of giving out local addresses. And if it works,
maybe
that's
the real answer.
Yes,
is to
that's
use IPv6.
No, that's not a real answer. Because the same people that say that about IPv4 will say the same thing about IPv6. Yes, we like these addresses, but we still want them behind the firewall because we don't want people to know them. Okay, I want everything to go through a proxy, whatever the reason is. So it's the mindset of people that is not going to change, not necessarily the technical problem that you're trying to solve. Another security issue that was there, there's a man-in-the-middle attack, which is great, but that's if you're stupid enough to write a service that uses Webrtc the wrong way, well, it's your problem. And then there is the case of the doing end-to-end encryption for an SFU from conference that is routed through a server. And you don't want even the server to be able to access the data. So there are suggestions around that called PERC, which are part of what will become Webrtc NV, the next version of Webrtc, where they are going to do double encryption. One encryption will be end-to-end, and one will be the envelope that goes towards the media server, which is also nice. So you see that all of these security issues are being treated and handled, and it's not as if you can say, well, Webrtc is secured, I don't need to care about that as a developer. It's that it gives you the tools to make it easier to you to add security into your product when it comes to the communication piece of it.
Well, I think inherently in the end, there's many more secure socket layers in RTC than there is in traditional SIP. That's for sure.
Yes, and that's changing because the web is starting to run over SSL or TLS or whatever you want to call it, instead of pure TCP today. Again, one of the initiatives that came, I guess, from Google in many ways, and other companies as well, but securing everything so that people don't even know what you're browsing or where you're going or what you're looking at when they look at the what goes on in the network from your home.
And even stuff like man in the middle of attacks with some of the new technologies, it's becoming inherently harder to actually achieve.
Yes.
The way the certificates are being signed.
Mm-hmm.
All right. Well, thank you for coming in today.
Thank you for having me. I enjoyed it.
Ken, back to you.
Unmute my microphone. All right. Tsahi, Michael, thanks very much, guys, for having that chat today. Next week, we're going to have Tom Parrott is going to be joining us, so you guys stop in and check that out. Ought to be really interesting, and also keep your eye out on the schedule. We're going to have Brian and Anthony from the Free Switch Project to be joining us here in just a few weeks, so keep an eye out for that, guys. Thanks, and we'll see you next week.
You've been watching ClueCon Weekly. Tune in every Wednesday at 12 p.m. Central. Keep up with the latest happenings by subscribing to our YouTube channel, follow us on Facebook and Twitter, or visit us at freeswitch.com.